ever wondered why wrestlers always look so surprised? Because they can't believe the number of people watching adults fight over a belt. Now that's just a bit of humor to get us started. Wrestling, as absurd as it may sound, is a sport that's captivated millions worldwide. And today we're not just talking about any wrestling, we're delving into the world of women's wrestling. But enough of the jokes, let's dive into the real action, the history of women's wrestling. Remember the time when wrestling was considered a men's-only domain? Well, not anymore. The trailblazing journey of women's wrestling starts back in the late 19th century in the heart of Europe. These were the days when women were rarely seen in the ring, let alone headlining an event. But as they say, times were a-changin', and the women were ready to rumble. Enter the pioneers, an audacious group of women who defied societal norms and blazed a path for future generations. They were not just wrestling with their opponents, but also wrestling with the societal constraints of the time. Among them were women like the indomitable Emily Ducatel, a French woman who was one of the first ladies to step into the ring in the late 1800s. And then there was the bold and fiery Mildred Burke, an American woman who dominated the wrestling scene in the 1930s and 40s. She was so good, in fact, that she once challenged any man in the audience to a match with a cash prize if they could pin her. Needless to say, no one ever did. Let's not forget the valiant women wrestlers of the post-war era, like June Byers and Mae Young, who kept the flame alive during a time when the wrestling world was predominantly male. Their relentless pursuit of recognition and equality was nothing short of heroic. These women were not just wrestlers, they were revolutionaries. They were the pioneers, the trailblazers, the game changers. They fought against the odds, against the norms, and against the world. And they won. They proved that wrestling was not just a man's game, but a sport where women could thrive and excel. So the next time someone tells you wrestling is for men, remind them of these fearless women who started it all. They were the pioneers paving the way for the women wrestlers of today, proving that in the ring, it's not about gender, but about skill, strength, and the will to win. Did you know women's wrestling started as a sideshow? But guess what? The sideshow became the main event. Now that's a twist, isn't it? Let's delve into the fascinating evolution of women's wrestling during the 20th century. This journey is all about how women's wrestling transitioned from being mere sideshows to the spotlight-stealing main events. The early 20th century was a time when women's wrestling was often the side dish, not the main course. It was part of the carnival culture, seen as an oddity, a novelty act to fill the gaps between the headline attractions. But slowly, the tides began to turn. The shift from sideshow attraction to main event was not an overnight phenomenon. It was a gradual process, fueled by the sheer determination, grit, and talent of countless women wrestlers. They broke the barriers, they shattered the stereotypes, and they showed the world that they were not just sideshow attractions, but champions in their own right. The rise of wrestling organizations in the mid-20th century played a crucial role in this transformation. These organizations recognized the potential and the drawing power of women's wrestling. They saw beyond the novelty and the spectacle. They saw athletes, they saw performers, they saw stars. And so, women's wrestling began to take center stage. Women wrestlers were no longer the sideshow, they were the show. They headlined events, they sold out arenas, they drew in the crowds. They proved that they could wrestle just as well, if not better, than their male counterparts. But it wasn't just about the wrestling, it was about empowerment, about breaking barriers, about pushing boundaries. It was about showing the world that women could be strong, they could be tough, they could be champions. And today, women's wrestling is a mainstay. It is a vital part of the wrestling industry, with women wrestlers being some of the biggest draws and the most popular stars. They are no longer the sideshow, they are the main event. They are the champions, they are the stars, they are the heroes. So, from sideshows to main events, women's wrestling has truly come a long way. What do you get when you mix drama, action, and strong women? A pop culture phenomenon, that's what. Now let's dive into the rise of women's wrestling in pop culture. It's been a thrilling spectacle, a true testament to the saying, slow and steady wins the race. From the early years, when women's wrestling was more a novelty than a norm, to its current status as a beloved fixture in pop culture, the journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. In the early days, Women wrestlers were often relegated to the sidelines, their talents overshadowed by their male counterparts. But as the years went on, these athletes refused to be sidelined. They fought their way into the limelight, proving their prowess in the ring and capturing the hearts of millions worldwide. Television shows and movies played a huge role in this rise. Who could forget the iconic Netflix series Glow, based on the true story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling? This show not only showcased the athleticism and grit of women wrestlers, but also shed light on their personal struggles and victories, humanizing them and making them relatable to a wider audience. And of course, who could ignore the WWE's women's division? From the trailblazing Chyna, the first woman to compete in the Royal Rumble, to the likes of Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, who've redefined what it means to be a woman in the wrestling world. Their high-flying moves and compelling storylines have enthralled fans and critics alike, contributing to the meteoric rise of women's wrestling in pop culture. But it's not just about the glitz and glamour. These women have worked relentlessly, honing their skills, braving injuries, and breaking barriers. They've become role models for young girls and boys alike, showing them that strength and resilience aren't defined by gender. So, from the ring to the screen, women's wrestling has made quite a splash. It's more than just a sport. It's a movement, a symbol of empowerment, a testament to the indomitable spirit of women. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it's just getting started. Fast forward to today, where women wrestlers are smashing records, breaking barriers, and taking names. Women's wrestling has never been more electric, more vibrant, or more thrilling. The spotlight has shifted, and the women in the ring are no longer the sideshow. They are the main event. The wrestling ring, once a male-dominated arena, now resonates with the thunderous applause for women wrestlers. They are making history every day, redefining what it means to be a woman in wrestling. From the high-flying maneuvers to the technical mastery, they've taken the sport to new heights. Take a moment to appreciate some of the trailblazers of today. Stars like the Queen of the Ring, who holds the record for the most championship wins in the history of women's wrestling, or the Fearless Fighter, who became the first woman to headline a pay-per-view event. These women are not just competitors, they are pioneers, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the wrestling world. But it's not just about the stars. The rise of women's wrestling has seen an increase in opportunities for all women in the sport. Training schools and academies have sprung up across the globe, encouraging young girls to step into the ring. Women's wrestling has become a global phenomenon, with matches being broadcasted to millions of fans worldwide. And it's not just the wrestling world that's taken notice. The impact of women's wrestling can be felt across all aspects of society. It's inspired countless girls and women to pursue their dreams in wrestling and beyond. It's challenged stereotypes and shattered glass ceilings. It's shown that strength and determination know no gender. And let's not forget the fans. The roar of the crowd, the cheers and the chants, they're all a testament to the love and respect that fans have for these incredible athletes. They're the ones who make the magic happen, who bring the energy and the excitement to every match. From pioneers to pop culture icons, women wrestlers have truly shaped the world of wrestling. So what have we learned today? Other than never to mess with a woman wrestler, of course. Let's do a quick body slam into the past, shall we? We've traveled from the humble beginnings of women's wrestling, which, surprise, surprise, didn't actually start in the good old US of A. Nope, it was Japan that first stepped into the ring, pioneering the sport in the late 19th century. Who'd have thought, right? From there, we've seen how these determined dames went from sideshow attractions to main event headliners, earning their rightful place in the spotlight. And let's not forget the rise of women's wrestling in pop culture. Who could ignore the power and prowess of these ladies as they burst onto our screens, becoming icons in their own right? And today, women's wrestling is bigger, badder, and better than ever. We've got world-class wrestlers, tag team champions, and a legion of fans who can't get enough of the action. These women are not just athletes, they're entertainers, role models, and symbols of strength and resilience. So, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of women's wrestling history, peppered with a few laughs along the way. And remember, it's not just about the fancy costumes or the dramatic storylines. It's about the heart, the drive, and the sheer determination of these women. Remember, In the world of wrestling, it's not about the size of the wrestler in the fight, but the size of the fight in the wrestler. Until next time, keep wrestling with life.